Poppin' B. Purpok here, and welcome back to another episode of Race the Ramen, the show where I attempt to review something unscripted in the amount of time it takes to boil an instant ramen. And today, we'll be taking a look at Paws of Fury, The Legend of Hank, showing now in movie theaters. Alright, we're going to start the timer right now. Okay, so, Paws of Fury, The Legend of Hank. This is an animated movie that came out recently and is being distributed by Nickelodeon Film Studios. And it has quite the interesting development history that might give you a little better context as to what the hell it is. Because if you just looked at the marketing for it that's been coming out recently, it might just kind of look like some generico, like lowest common denominator, haha, big fat guy, huge butt, farts, jokey kid movie that your children will probably drag you to see and you will scream on the inside while you're watching it. But there's more to it than that. This movie was originally titled Blazing Samurai. It was meant to come out around 2017, and then at some point it was delayed over and over and over again. It has a tumultuous, rocky history that's kind of hard to get into at this moment. RebelTaxi did a really good video on the whole thing. I'll link that somewhere up here if you want to go check that out. That gives a whole history of how different studios were hired on, different producers were hired on, and how it took the better part of 5, almost 6 years for this bizarre little movie to come out. It was originally titled Blazing Samurai because it was meant to be an homage / remake, sort of, in kids' movie form of Blazing Saddles, the Mel Brooks movie, like the satire comedy, Blazing Saddles, about a black man becoming a cowboy in a town full of racist white people. They took that idea and they made it into a kids film. With Mel Brooks's blessing, basically. He's in the movie, he has a voice role, where he basically plays the same character, plot-wise, that he did in Blazing Saddles. And he's even a producer, one of the executive producers on the project. So this basically has his blessing. And the weirdest thing about it is that, while they do mostly remove all the racial tension stuff, because, slapping that onto like a PG kids movie about cats and dogs, when adapting like a 70s era movie about race relations, there's a lot that could have messed up. So thankfully they just kind of stick with the comedic aspects of Blazing Saddles. It has that fast-paced comedy. And I should probably actually say what I think about the movie rather than just telling you the history. RebelTaxi can do that, Mr. Pizza in a Pan. But it's not nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be. I went into it kind of expecting it to be really bad. I was mostly curious. I didn't want it to be bad, necessarily. But considering how long it took for it to come out and how kind of misguided the idea for the movie seems, I expected it to be terrible, especially with that recent marketing that was just awful. I already mentioned it. But I did not hate it. I did not hate Paws of Fury, The Legend of Hank. I don't even think it's the worst animated movie I've seen this year. It was way better than Pinocchio, A True Story. I actually had some fun with it. It's definitely like a weird and kind of just confusing movie in terms of vision. You can kind of tell it took forever to make because there's just parts that feel at odds with each other. The tone is so strange. It's mostly light and comedic, but there's occasionally serious moments and parts that feel like, they're taking the story more seriously than, just a parody movie. But for the most part, it's like a gag every couple seconds, dialogue gags, sight gags, breaking the fourth wall kind of parody movie. And while there are a lot of groan-worthy jokes that I just was like, there was very little in the movie that was actually like offensive or really, really unfunny. The worst thing I can say about this movie is that, at its worst, it's like a mediocre late 2000s, early 2010s looking animated movie that you maybe watch once and forget. It doesn't feel like anything crazy special, partly because it literally is, in some places, just Blazing Saddles. Like, they do parts from Blazing Saddles one for one. They recreate the sheriff is near and like the paper town part. It's weird. But as like just an experience of like going into a theater and seeing it, I've seen worse. I had some fun. And the animators probably deserve to eat next week. So I guess I can recommend it. Hopefully that gave you a decent impression of what I think of the movie. It's really kind of scattered. It mostly is just a bunch of gags and a lot of weird stuff that is straight up ripped from Blazing Saddles. That's kind of the most entertaining thing about this movie, is that it's an oddity. And I mainly just wanted to see it to see how it turned out after all these years and with such a weird premise. And also to, kind of justify how much time and effort and struggle a lot of these people and animators probably put into it, no matter how good it turned out to be. But yeah, I thought it was going to be awful. It was honestly not the worst. It was close to just okay. There are parts that drag it down, and structurally it's messy. But, I don't know. I've seen worse movies this year, and I've seen far worse animated movies than this before. It's not even the worst movie, probably by a stretch, that Nickelodeon Movies has put out, so whatever that's worth. I give Paws of Fury, The Legend of Hank, a 4 out of 10. Again, I did not hate it. I went and saw this movie alone, and there were only like 5 other people in the theater. 7, actually. There was like a family with a bunch of children who were just like screaming and running around the whole time. I can't tell how much they were enjoying it. They laughed whenever the big fat cat was on screen, so I guess that worked. But, I don't know. There are definitely better animated movies to see around this time. I would probably recommend, if you just want to see a movie, a cartoon you might like, I'd recommend Marcel, the Shell with Shoes On. Great movie. That's out right now. I just reviewed that. I haven't seen the new Minions, but you're probably gonna, get your money's worth if you actually like Minion stuff. This, if you're adventurous and you want to see something interesting and odd, go for it. Otherwise,